Hi everybody, welcome back to my little YouTube channel. If you're new to this channel, my name's Amanda. I'm a diagnosed autistic adult. I'm 41 years old. I was diagnosed with autism a few years ago. In today's video, I'm going to talk about some of the things that you can do to help better support an autistic individual in the work or education environment. So if you're interested in hearing more, stay tuned. So what are some of the things that you could consider when supporting an autistic individual in the work environment? Now, one of the first things that you could do is offer behind the scenes work, and that's because autistic people, we often find face-to-face interaction really quite challenging. We often find communicating and just being around other people quite anxiety provoking, and that can include things like communication difficulties. Sometimes we can take what other people say to us and we can misinterpret information, or other people can misinterpret what we've said to them. We can find eye contact and things like that incredibly challenging. So offering behind the scenes work roles can be really beneficial to that autistic person. I think it's really important when dealing with an autistic individual in the work environment to understand that a steady paced workload is often essential for the autistic person to do really well in that work environment. And any sudden requests and changes in plans that lead to unpredictability can be really stressful and anxiety provoking to autistic people, and that can include sudden changes in plans causing anxiety, for example. So keeping things predictable and keeping things pre-planned in a work setting is really important for that autistic individual to prosper. And that brings me to the next topic, and that's giving autistic people lots of notice in advance if plans are going to change. As I've just said, autistic people, we often find plans that change at the last minute, spontaneous things that happen in our day-to-day work activity, in our day-to-day timetable, quite anxiety provoking, and any sudden changes in our work timetable we often find quite overwhelming, and it can lead to a lot of anxiety, panic attacks and autistic meltdowns. So giving lots of notice in advance to that autistic person if things are going to change is absolutely essential. It's really important to consider when communicating with an autistic person that the way we communicate with other people and the world around us can be quite different to that of non-autistic people. So if you're giving instructions to autistic people, you need to just make sure that any instruction should be quite clear and quite concise, and it's really important to make sure that you write down any instructions and you send it to them in, say for example, an email, and like I say, really be quite clear and concise in your use of words so that that autistic person is able to follow, say for example, rules and regulations. As I say, autistic people, our way of communicating and understanding the world around us can be quite different to that of non-autistic people. I think it's really important not to overwhelm autistic people in a work or, say for example, an education setting, and we can be quite easily overwhelmed by lots of things to do all at once. So if you're giving an autistic person loads of tasks to complete, it can often feel quite overwhelming to us. So I think it's really important if you're working or you're employing an autistic individual to make sure that you give them one task at a time, to give us one task. I mean, we're all different. Obviously, autism is a spectrum, so we're all going to cope with different social situations and work environments differently. But the vast majority of autistic people can become quite easily overwhelmed with loads, like multiple tasks all given at once. And so one task at a time. Just remember not to overload people with multiple tasks, because often that can cause autistic meltdowns. I think it's really important, it's key to make sure that if you're giving instructions to an autistic person, whether verbal or written down, that you don't assume that the autistic person has understood the instructions that you're giving to them, and always follow up what you've said to somebody with autism by just saying, I'm just making sure, do you understand what I've said to you? Do you understand what's been written down? And maybe just reiterating and going through certain rules, regulations, instructions, whatever it might be. So just it is key, I think, to not assume that anything that you've said to an autistic person has been sort of internalised and understood. I know myself, a lot of the time I can people please, so I can just say yes, I understood, when actually I didn't do, and it's led to a lot of problems in my previous work environment situation, where it's been taken for granted that advice that's been given to me, even written down, has been internalised and understood by me, when it's actually not, and I've been quite embarrassed to actually ask for help or clarification. So just reiterating any information that you've given to an autistic person and just making sure that we understand it is really essential for that autistic person to flourish in a work environment. I think it can be a really good idea to have something called a buddy system or a buddy setup in a work or education setting, and that can be just providing another member of staff or a manager or somebody that autistic person can go to. So if, for example, we don't understand something, or we're finding something a little bit challenging, or we're finding something a little bit difficult, then we've got a key member of staff, a key person, a role model, somebody to go to who we can rely on and just ask for clarification. And having a buddy system can work really well for an autistic person in the work environment. And sometimes that can include things like direct supervision as well. So it might be important just to ask the autistic person, are you happy being supervised? I know when I was working in the NHS, I found supervision quite challenging because I have a lot of anxiety. Although it was essential in the work environment that I was in at the time, a lot of autistic people might do really well with having direct supervision. Just somebody that can observe the work that the autistic person's doing and give feedback, but just make sure when you're giving feedback that it's constructive feedback, and I'll also give lots of praise as well, because a lot of autistic people, we do really well with praise. Sometimes it can really help in asking that autistic person if they're comfortable with writing up a list of, for example, their support needs. So it could be like, for example, an A4 piece of paper or an email, and it could just be, I have, my name is such and such, I'm a member of staff, I have autism spectrum condition. This is what I find challenging in the work environment, this is what I find challenging having autism, and these are my strengths. And obviously it's really important to ask the autistic person, are you happy for this information to be shared to other members of staff or management? But if they are happy to do so, and that's what I did in my last employment when I worked in the NHS, and that information can then be shared amongst other members of staff, it can allow your colleagues and co-workers to understand autism spectrum better, and it can allow people to understand that autistic person, so any struggles that person might face, and it can allow the colleague and the colleagues and the team around them to better support them in the work environment. And I think the main one, the really important one, is just being a supportive manager and making sure that you've got training within your organisation for your team regarding autism, and making sure that everybody understands what autism spectrum means and how to better support an autistic person in the workplace. So I think it's invaluable to have training with regards to autism for everybody in the work environment, so that everybody understands it better. It can be a really good idea to have something called a safe space or a quiet place in your work environment, so that that autistic person is able to escape and go to that area. It might be a room that's just quiet, away from people. It might be a room with dimmed lights, and that reduces sensory overload from all the bright lights and the overstimulation of most of the time work environments and education settings can be fraught with bright lights and lots of people and lots of tasks and things that we're having to do every day, and it can be quite overwhelming. It can cause meltdowns. So just having somewhere that an autistic person can go to escape and get away from that environment, even if it's just for 5 minutes, can be really, really invaluable for that autistic person's mental health. And making sure that the autistic person has protected break times in their timetable, and making sure that those break times aren't interrupted. That can be really frustrating for autistic people. It's really important for us as autistic people to have routine and predictability, and that includes like protected break times. Break times are important for everybody, not just autistic people, but making sure that they are protected and predictable. It's a really good idea for autistic people to have regular review meetings with management, and that can include giving feedback with regards to their productivity. But I think it's really important that I reiterate when saying this, that autistic people often do really well in a work environment by giving praise. So just make sure that the feedback is constructive and it's not destructive. And if you've got the availability to do so, it might be important to take into consideration any sensory stresses that autistic person finds quite anxiety provoking and quite overwhelming. Things like bright lights and loud noises can often lead to things like autistic meltdowns. So if you're able to do so, and you're able to do so safely in that work environment, you might be able to dim the lights, for example, or move a table and chair away from, say, for example, a busy office environment to a quieter area, just to accommodate that autistic person's disability and to reduce the chances of them developing meltdowns and sensory overload. And that can really help improve the quality of life at work for that autistic person. And I think the most important thing I've got to say is just being kind and being understanding towards that autistic person, and just accept that member of staff, that employee has got a registered disability, and that's covered under the Equality Act 2010. That's in the United Kingdom. But I think being kind and being understanding is key to the whole of this video. So I hope this little video has helped you to better understand how to better support an autistic individual in the work environment, or indeed in the education setting. If it has, please consider hitting like, commenting and subscribing, and I shall see you next time for my next vlog. Bye!